Hey, amazing and compassionate teachers, studio owners, or directors. This is a super fun topic that I love to share on teaching etiquette to your dancers. This subject is really needed in an ever changing, fast paced society. I am seeing some major shifts and major changes. I have three teenage boys, and I got to tell you that what they do, how they interact, the things they say, it's very different than how we were taught. So, teaching etiquette is one of those subjects that can be done just by handing a student a piece of paper, or it can be done in a way that is much more engaging and a lot more fun. Of course, one thing that I definitely do recommend, besides for teaching and verbally telling your students these things, I actually do recommend putting in a handbook what etiquette you're looking for and wanting to draw out of your students. So let's get started. Here are some things that are growing increasingly less common, and I would love to encourage you to start putting them in your bag of tricks or your teaching lessons and start encouraging your dancers to use them. Come prepared with your hair securely back and wearing the appropriate attire. I tell you what, this speed of our kids' lives is increasing and going faster and faster and faster. And as a result, they're running from thing to thing. Encouraging them young will help them get in this habit of walking into class with the appropriate attire with their hair securely fixed. And you will save yourself so many battles when you do this. 2, leaning on the bar or hanging on someone or sitting back against the wall. All of these things are really, quite normal. If you're talking to your kid at home, you might see them kind of slouched over and, putting their hand on a counter, etc. However, in a ballet class, it's super important that you are already beginning to teach your students that, hey, it's really important that we don't lean on the bar. You probably don't mean anything by it, but it could come off as if you're not really listening or you're not really present or maybe you don't care. And most of the time, as you know, teachers, they don't mean that. It's just what they're comfortable doing. So teaching them early on as well to be attentive, not leaning, not slouching is super important. You'd think this one wouldn't get overlooked, but yet it can. No gum in class. Now, I tell you, if you're working with advanced dancers, this is probably not happening. However, when you are working with students who are quite young, they may not even think of it. They could be chewing gum from the day, and they might walk in there and then they start chewing, and all of a sudden you recognize it. So I recommend with this one to maybe just walk up to them quietly and be like, hey, throw your gum out, please. Because sometimes that can be a very embarrassing one. The fourth etiquette that you can teach is the importance of being aware of the space around you and being aware of the people in your space. So one of the things that I often see happen is that dancers stop as they're traveling across the floor. And they stop because they're frustrated with something that they did not do as great as they wanted to. However, what ends up happening is they cause kind of that traffic backup, or they get in the way of a dancer who's moving along in that combination. The other thing that dancers do innocently, unless they're taught over and over and know better, they sometimes are running forward, and then when they're done with their combination, they just turn right around and run backwards. And so teaching the natural traffic flow, that when you are working in center, your dancers are in center, you've lined them up, you have them appropriately spaced in windows, and then they run forward when their combination is done and they run out to the side. If they're traveling on the diagonal line, you're teaching them to finish, you're teaching them to run out and not just slough off when they get to the end of the combination. These are hard things to do because you're thinking of a million things. So the sooner you can lay this etiquette down, the easier your job will be as these students progress in ability. No talking in class. Now, you would think this would be common sense. However, sometimes, though it might be common sense, it seems to just not happen very easily. One of the things that I like to emphasize is that, or I say to my students, is that talking while a teacher's talking is disrespectful, even if they don't even mean it to be disrespectful. The teacher's trying to plan, think, create a combination. The other thing that often happens is sometimes when a dancer is waiting on the side, they're talking to their peer. And we will assume they're talking about something in class, but maybe not. And the thing that's very important to remind them is that there is an opportunity to watch their peers and not miss a chance to see something great that their peer does and affirm them, or learn from their peers, because the reality is they're still students. There is still something that they can learn even when they're not dancing, even when they're standing on the side. So really encourage that, but maybe explain the reasoning behind it rather than just stop talking. Let them know what your heart is. That might really help this one. All right, these are just a few. There's many, many more, and I'm sure you could comment and share your thoughts below. But wow, teaching all of these things will really help early on. I want to remind you, teachers, when you are really focusing on etiquette, remember, the more you can help your students understand the why and the meaning behind this etiquette, and even some of the history, you can get into dance history here, you're going to find that your students are more inclined to follow the rule. If they just are following a rule because you're telling them to do it and don't necessarily understand why or what the purpose behind it is, they might give you a little more pushback. I have found that when students really understand the why and feel respected back, they actually may not agree with my opinion, but they will follow suit, mostly because they are in a space of respecting and understanding the process. So once again, I hope that this proves valuable for you, that you can become that inspiring, compassionate, excellent teacher who is laying down solid foundations for your students. Because remember, these foundations that you're laying down, they go much bigger than the dance studio. Yeah, some of your dancers might go on for a professional career, but many will not. And that's okay, because some of these things that you are teaching them in a dance class, specifically even with etiquette, man, this is good stuff. They're going to need this when they're doing job interviews. They're going to need this in their workplace. So that is my encouragement. I hope you can take it, use it, and apply it into the spaces of your teaching.